Ocean View. Today we're talking a little bit about parenting in the day of social media. And you know, when those little babies first come into the world, they don't come with instruction manuals. So how is a parent supposed to know? How are you supposed to do it right?
You know, we have a lot of examples in the Bible, and I think oftentimes the first one that comes to most people's mind is spare the rod, spoil the child. Every time but the Bible never implies that rod is to be violent. There's nothing in the Bible that says if we spank our children that it needs to be violent.
No. No, you know, with 7 children, I think I can write a book on disciplining
you spank those kids.
every type of child. Yeah, I do.
Good for you.
I discipline them.
There you go.
I don't beat them up. You know, I'm not even old-fashioned. My husband, matter of fact, he picks at me. I pop him. That's a tap. What is that? You know, my children, they don't even cry. You know.
Oh yeah.
And you know, I don't beat them till they cry. I'm trying to get that out of them. You know, actually, I have one child. I can lift a hand, and she will just pass out. You know, I don't have to touch her. Fortunately, my children, you know, they don't like spankings. You know, so they're pretty well behaved and they don't embarrass me in public. So I think we're doing a good job.
Doing a good job.
Well, Jackie, you said that they don't come with instruction manuals, but the parents do, because the Bible tells us train up a child in the way that he should go. Right. And so the parents actually have to take the time to learn what is biblical parenting. How do we train our children to love God and to love other people and to walk in a manner that is pleasing to themselves and pleasing to God and pleasing to the society that they live. We've got to do our job so that we can show them how to live.
You know, really with that too, you know, the more you do that, the less you have to spank your children.
That's right.
You know, I don't have to spank them all the time. I mean, we very rarely do it. You know, I do talk to them more than we spank.
Yeah.
You know, because we are applying those principles to them all the time. You know, we live that life before them all the time. So, you know, fortunately, you know, we're able to communicate with our children. You know, they're still children. You know, they still try us. You know, children are children. I'm not saying that they don't act like children, but
you know, we see a lot of examples in the Bible, and God is our Father. He models it beautifully for us. He disciplines in many different ways. I think it needs to be age appropriate. There's a lot of things you take into consideration: the offense, the wrong that they've done. True. You know, and then God gives us great examples of how He disciplines us so that we're repentant and want to return back to Him. And I think that's the way we model.
You spank those boys.
Oh yes, I've spanked them. I hate to spank. I hate to spank, and a lot of times I've done it all wrong in anger. And I know Dr. Dobson says, I think maybe past the age of 11, they say, have you read that, Elisa, where, you know, it's ineffective? I don't know, but I think
pinch.
Yeah.
Oh, that's what my mama did.
I think what you said earlier about the 20-minute rule, because a lot of times it's a reaction instead of a response. And the Bible tells us, provoke not. For this is the rule for parents, the guideline for parents, provoke not your children to wrath. Or I looked that word up, wrath, that means exasperation. Not that they're not going to get angry at you, but don't exasperate your child to where they lose respect for you.
And when you do, I think you've got to be humble enough to go back to them and say, I blew it. You know, and I ask your forgiveness. I was wrong in this, you know. And I have an aunt who says, she was in education for 40 years. And one of the things that she said that was so interesting to me was in Psalm 23, where it says, thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. And that like a shepherd, the rod was used to keep the sheep kind of out of harm's way. You know, that's how you use a rod. I don't think she was saying don't ever spank, but she was saying, you know, that our rod of discipline is to keep them out of harm's way. Yeah.
And Rebecca, you think about a shepherd, and parents are the shepherds of their children. One end of it is to kind of prod them. The other one is a hook. You kind of pull them back in. When you see your kids, they're veering off, you get that hook and you bring them back into the fold, because you can see it. I mean, if you're observant parents.
But don't you think, too, if you start with that child before the age of 5, all the way up from 1, 2, 3, and you're just patting them, no. Usually by the time they're 5 years old, they pretty much know, I don't want to spank him.
And some of them, like you said, your child, one of them you just barely have to raise your, the sensitivity level, some children you never, ever, you just have to say their name, and they're good.
Baby, he watches everyone else, so, you know.
Does he cry when someone else gets
Yeah,
it?
he does. So, he probably gets less spankings. They think he's full, but he's not. He's just a good
Well, I
baby.
think you can have a system. I think that you could sit down, you and your husband, or if you're a single parent, then you sit down and you say, okay, what is going to be my system? Am I going to
You gotta be
give them
together
a
on it.
particular timeout? Am I going to give them a break and then enact the punishment and then communicate about it afterwards? And there's a lot of things, and like I said before, about praying with your child after the offense. But you've got to communicate care. I think one of the very first things you do is you say, I'm very disappointed. I love you. I love you, and I'm punishing you because I care about you. And oftentimes, like you said, if we do it in anger, we don't show that care.
Blow it.
You know, it's
That's
funny.
right.
I sometimes think maybe we communicate just a little too much. Because my children, if we do something
Mama,
wrong,
let's talk about this.
they want to talk. And I have one in particular. Now you're wrong about that, Mom. You're wrong about that, Dad. And we have to not have pride because this is what we teach them. We're wrong, and we'll say,
Yeah.
Very good.
right.
Very good. Because there are times when parents, are over restrictive or a little too harsh on their kids. I mean, we've all been there, maybe, but
I try to
I was
have
too
a
easy on
rule
mine.
that, if they've put themselves or somebody else in harm's way, then, that's kind of that's serious enough for a spanking.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the boundary we've tried to go by, but I hate spanking.
When I was little, we didn't go anywhere without a switch in the car.
Oh, yeah. Or you go
Your
get your
switches
own.
in the car?
Go get your own hickory. they
Yeah,
say.
I'm going to pull over and you go get one off that tree.
Exactly.
Yeah, come on, switch.
You have to get the right one too.
Yes.
Yeah.
I looked up, the Bible says about
Did you
bringing
have
up
to get
your
a switch?
The Bible says about bringing up your children in the nurture and admonition of the Lord. And that word nurture means to educate and cultivate the soul. The soul, your mind, will, and emotions. Educate them so they understand what's right and what's wrong.
But I will say this.
Cultivate.
That's good. Very good.
I never got a spanking in public. And I never spanked my children in public. It was always something, they weren't embarrassed in front of people.
Yeah.
I didn't do that.
I did mine in the kitchen, and my mama would grab hold of my arm, and she'd go around me, and I'd go around her and say, I told you not to do that anymore. And
There are those moments when you're in public and you have no choice. If you're in public and you don't have a choice, you need to rein them back in. I'm not
Let's go to
saying
the
you spank them.
restroom.
We go to the
Let's go to the
restroom.
What Dr.
You
Johnson
take
said,
them out.
Dr. Johnson said if he was in church and his boys were acting up, he would pinch that little, he'd just put his arm around him and kind of pinch
gotta get the
that.
attention.
And he said, boy, that straightened him. Nobody knew what he was doing.
Call the police.
If you don't get the
And
spanking,
children
the
know
police are
it.
coming.
And that's what they hold against you. They know,
Yeah.
you know what? You can go to jail if you touch me.
Yeah,
You know, so
they
that's
know
what you have
that
to-
now, but they didn't know that when mine were little.
Oh, we had
No.
corporal
No.
punishment in school growing up.
gosh, yeah, we
yes.
did.
I
I
think
remember
I got one my senior year. So from my chemistry teacher.
Oh, goodness.
If you're watching.
Oh my goodness, this is too good. This is too good. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back. Thank you. You got a spanking in school. Thank you for joining us today. Join us live on Facebook. See you next time.